Okay, I am sitting here with someone that just saw a presentation about Bernie, called Bernie 101, the basics about Bernie. And would you please tell us your name and a little bit about yourself, having nothing to do with Bernie, just a little bit about yourself. What's your name?
My name is Donna Taylor, and I'm a retired social worker. I lived in California for almost 40 years and recently moved back to New Jersey, Trenton, New Jersey specifically, because I had received a 60-day notice to move in the middle of the winter and pulled it together almost miraculously without a lot of help and moved back to my hometown where my older son lives. And uh, prior to that, I had seen Bernie on television, and when I heard him speak, the first time I heard him speak and outlining his platform and what his program was all about, I was really moved emotionally because personally, a lot of the negative things that I experienced as an African American woman, African American single woman with a child that's um, disabled, really spoke to me and helped me to understand that there was help on the way. Help was coming.
And what, before you ever, when did you discover him? At what year or month or?
I would say probably in 2015, not very long ago, because I had never heard of him before. I didn't know anything about him.
So after he announced his candidacy?
I think it was after he announced his candidacy.
Okay. So what was your feelings about politics or, the country before Bernie Sanders? Before you discovered
I
him?
realized over the years, I would say over the last 5 years, that there were a lot of things that were horrifically unjust in this nation concerning children of color, senior citizens, and in my ethnic group specifically, most of our men have become almost an extinction because of being incarcerated. And then the problems that our youth have been experiencing with policing issues, and I would say the school to prison pipeline, which almost impacted my son personally. It really made me think about the way in which our country was moving and how um, that fly is really bothering me.
So before you discovered Bernie Sanders, what did you think of politics and the country, and who?
Really, I didn't have any real thoughts about politics in the country because I didn't feel that there was any way that there'd be any kind of inevitable change for my people specifically in the United States and throughout the communities where Black people live. It just seemed as though it's just going to always be the status quo, and nothing is going to change. But the first time I heard him speak, there was a stirring inside me of hope for not only my people but for the nation, because Bernie speaks with such a raw, genuine, authentic passion about things that impact everybody. And after hearing him speak, I fell in love with him. Literally fell in love with him from the point of view that this is someone who didn't just pop out of the air, that didn't just appear on the scene as a Johnny come lately into politics. This is someone who has been working very hard and saying the same thing and trying to push for the same types of reforms that will affect all people from the bottom up. And he's been doing it for such a long time that I was just amazed that he even existed. I was amazed.
But how do you know? I mean, you say you've gone through his history, so clearly you know. But before that, how did you get to the point where, yeah, you heard these good things, but that he's not just saying them? Like,
Well, there was a lot of rhetoric being spewed in the media about the fact that he wasn't a real Democrat and he didn't really have the characteristics and the attributes of somebody that had been working in the trenches for a long time. And then it was announced on television, I believe. I don't remember specifically who it was, but it came to my attention that he had been involved in civil rights since he was in his 20s. And then I saw a video of him when he was arrested. And that, to me, that was the pivotal point in my mind to let me know that this man has developed a passion for justice and things that are right. And he didn't just develop it overnight. He's been doing this since he was in his 20s. When I literally saw the video of him being arrested, I believe it was in Chicago, my heart was broken. I said, because this is someone who can identify with all of the atrocities that black people have been through as they have fought in this country to be recognized as regular citizens and not second-class citizens. This is someone who joined in to let his peers know, to let the community know that he too could not just close his eyes and go to bed at night and go to sleep, knowing that other people were being, discriminated against, not being able to go to school or eat in the and have their meals at a restaurant or at a lunch counter like non-blacks had to experience. So to me, that let me know that he was real. He was absolutely genuine, absolutely
so that
for real.
that when he was arrested, that was 1962, and he led the first sit-in in Chicago history against segregated housing.
Right, and I did not know that. And yet, at my age, I lived through the civil rights movement in the 60s. But I was a little girl then, and it was like all a fog to me. I didn't really know what racism was until I began to grow up and try to move about the society and, going through the college process. I didn't even really know what real racism was, but I knew that I had seen my father suffer as a bricklayer, as a mason contractor, working very, 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 very hard with his hands and bringing in not a lot of money to take care of my mom and my siblings, and often not being paid by wealthy customers, white clients. So these are things that I remember, but as far as having it impact me more directly, I really wasn't aware of, what racism was really all about.
So an old white guy is the person that you think is best for African American concerns.
Absolutely. I mean, when I see him speak, and when I hear what he has to say on just a myriad of issues, from the climate, how inner cities have just completely been demolished and they look like war zones, and how, he talks about how, investors should not be buying up all these properties. Where I'm living at right now in the city of Trenton, it literally looks like a war zone. And Bernie is basically very passionate about the fact that these homes that are completely just decimated and they're dilapidated and they're falling apart, and you can go into street after street after street and see the way it looks like, a war has been conducted. But this is a result of the 2008 housing meltdown, and the fact that nobody's doing anything to put those people back into those homes that were at one time absolutely gorgeous homes, the row houses and the small houses in the township that are boarded up.
But the banks were made whole.
Yeah, the banks were made whole, The banks were made whole. But the people that lived in those homes, that had to get out of those homes as a result of foreclosure, who probably fought with all their might to hold on to those homes, where are those people now? When you walk down the street, I see my people, the young black males with no jobs, and their only means of sustenance in their mind, and pretty much that's their reality, is to do drugs, to sell drugs, or to have some other kind of scheme to try to make money.
So you were saying before that your son almost got caught up in the private prison issue.
He could have, if had I not been a very outspoken and strong advocate for him. When he was in school, he was targeted by a education system that had a hidden agenda, and they really did not see him the way I saw him, or the way his family saw him, as a beautiful young black male with a tremendous amount of talent, athletically and academically as well. They saw him as a meal ticket, I guess, and targeted him. And their concept was to try to get him labeled as a criminal, and possibly, get him on the track to go into the juvenile court system. He was arrested while on campus, on his way to a classroom. And his GPA at that time was almost a 4.0. So it did not matter that, this young, handsome black male who, dressed with hoodies and dressed like most of the young people dress today, that he was an aspiring, student athlete. It didn't matter to them. What mattered to them was that this is someone that we can target. This is a single mother without, in their minds, a support system. No man in the household. So he's easy prey. He's easy pickings for being put on the track to prison. And I fought very hard to stop that from happening. And I'm still fighting very hard, because my values and the things that I believe in, I'm constantly reinforcing that to him. And not just to him, but to any young black male that I see or have interaction with or contact with in the inner city.
And the people who go to prison, these prisons for profit for pot, these very low rate crimes, which shouldn't be crimes.
Right. Very minor offenses.
They're slapped with a criminal record for the rest of their lives, and when they're in jail, they can be basically used as slave labor.
That's exactly what it is.
Screw over middle-class workers who say, well, if you're not going to accept lower pay or lower benefits, then we'll just use these guys who will work for $1 an hour.
Right. It's nothing more than a neutral Jim Crow system.
It's like
in America. That's what it is.
It's just an extension of the trade policies, the race to the bottom, where we can change your jobs. We can I can hire someone in Mexico that we can screw along with you, or we can just hire someone from the prison who we can screw along with you.
Right. And it's got to stop. And that's why when I saw him on television and I heard what he was speaking about, the issues that he touched upon are issues that are dear to my heart and dear to the heart of any African American mother who has sense, who's not going to be just trying to embrace somebody because that person has a familiar face.
Or
can speak the rhetoric and talk the talk, but they're not really walking the walk.
So a lot of African Americans like Hillary Clinton. So they feel like she is the one that is better for this country. So why is it that they know Bernie well and they just simply think that Hillary is a better option? What is the story that is number one making them think that Hillary Clinton is the better option? And what are they missing about Bernie Sanders?
Personally, I just don't get it. I think that a lot of our people do not take it upon themselves to do research themselves, to sort things out themselves, to find out what the real facts are when you compare them both by doing the research on the internet. But the young people are doing it. They're taking the time to read. They're taking the time to go back, and they're finding out that this is the same man that was saying the same thing 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And he never flip-flopped in his ideology. I think that the fact that the media has a tendency to skew and put out information that's not accurate. And as a people, we tend to embrace and digest and ingest, information without really taking a hard look at the facts for ourselves. We let people tell us what to think and what to believe. And when you're accustomed to accepting, a line of rhetoric without really finding out for yourself, what has this person been doing? How long have they been involved? Were they ever in the trenches? Have they ever gotten arrested for anything that involved civil disobedience? They don't think like that. I think that they just used to being handed something and being told how to think.
So is it?
But when you have a passion inside of you, and you have personally experienced some of the more crude issues that a lot of our young people are experiencing now with the surveillance and the policing and the being pushed out, of your educational setting and not being allowed to even have an opportunity to go through the matriculation process to learn in the classroom. When you personally experience some things like that, when you personally have to fight constantly so that your kids are treated like anybody else's kids, then you should at some point come to a conclusion. Wow, who is it that is actually running for president? Who shares my concerns? Who can articulate my concerns? And who can actually demonstrate a track record of having been doing the same thing and saying the same thing for decades? That is only one person, and that's Bernie Sanders.
So how do you know these things about Bernie Sanders, but so many other African Americans don't know it? Or they know him very well, just don't like him?
I don't think that they know him very well at all. The people that I'm talking to, the people that I'm meeting on one-on-one basis, on a day-to-day basis, basically don't know anything about Bernie, because there is a blackout as far as, hearing about who he really is. There's just a limited amount of information that was even being broadcast on the mainstream media outlets in the very beginning when he announced his presidency.
But
everything's been kind of shut down.
But they don't. Okay, so they don't know Bernie Sanders. But what is stopping them from learning about him? People like you say that he's worth learning about. Open your eyes. This is, But what is stopping them from actually seeing him? Is there a resistance to even want to see him? Is there just not avenues available to them?
Personally, I think that there's a lot of hopelessness in the Black community. Just recently, I've been trying to talk to people just about voting, just about getting registered to vote. And a lot of people are so apathetic because of being the have-nots for so long that they really they can't even conceptualize being a part of change in this nation for real. They look at people that have made promises in the past, that have gotten into office and did not keep those promises, or either were so buffeted and had so much objection from other politicians and from the government system itself, like President Obama. He did a good job, but the obstructionism that he experienced, it breaks your spirit at some point. And that's what I see when I look in the faces of the men and the women that I speak to. Those that don't have any concept of Bernie, they're just oblivious to the fact that they have to take a stand. They have to get involved. They have to become educated. They have to make themselves knowledgeable. They're so beat down. When you look at the way the communities look, when you when you personally know how they are scripting and scrapping and struggling just to eat every day, just to make ends meet, you know, um, it's like an abject hopelessness in a lot of ways. And for those that are going for a candidate like Hillary, again, it's being told what to think and who to vote for, not really breaking down, you know, her position on an individual basis and seeing for yourself, what does she really have to, what has she done, and is she really about when she was a senator? Okay, you could look at what Bernie's been about, and you can see for yourself if you do the research. And our people just aren't doing the research. Half of them, or I should say, a lot of the majority of African Americans, you know, they can't even afford to have cable TV. You know, I myself, I don't even have cable television. And then when you're constantly looking at the media and depending on the media to tell you what you think you're supposed to be embracing, you basically have given up your own right to think for yourself. You don't, I don't know how to put it, but you become dependent on...
You assume that they're smarter than you.
Huh?
You assume that the people on TV are smarter than you.
Exactly, you do. You assume that they're smarter than you, that the media is smarter than you, and that they're telling the truth.
And I just was speaking to somebody yesterday who was listening to Bernie, and it made sense to her, but she didn't have confidence in herself enough that it was good enough to vote for. Mm-hmm. It was, I'm not articulating it very well, but I wanted to ask you to end this. So what do you say, you have a chance to say to people we're here in Burlington County, New Jersey, Pemberton, Trenton, Willingboro, Burlington City, what do you want to tell them? Speak to these people.
I want people to know that they need to wake up, and wake up really quickly, because our country is not going to turn itself around. We have to do the work ourselves, and we have to be invested in people who have legitimacy, in people who are authentic. And that group of people are the people that are supporting Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the first rare gem that has come along in a very long time, and he has the heart and soul and the pulse of people from the grassroots all the way up. He is a proponent for everything that constitutes justice and righteousness, as far as I see it, or what is right and how it should be, how things should be done for us as individual Americans. I mean, if we don't take the time to really find out who he is and what he's all about, we're basically dooming ourselves to non-existence, extinction, because the powers that be, you know, the corporate structure itself, they're not going to give us a handout, and they're not going to help us figure it out. The work's already been done. We don't have to try to figure it out. All we have to do is listen to what he has to say, go back and look at his track record. It's there. It's in black and white. It's not fake. It's real. And we need to understand that he is an advocate for all people. He's one of the most brilliant spokespersons, and he's one of the most masterful public servants that we've had in a long time. I mean, I didn't know that he was considered the Amendment King, but he really knows how to get things done in government. And so to me, it's like hope has arrived. Hope has arrived because Bernie is here, and Bernie is for America, for real. He's not just talking about some ideological thing that he wants to do. He's actually doing the work. He's been in the trenches all of his life, pretty much, all of his young adult life. And if we don't let if we don't help get him in office, if we let this opportunity pass us by, shame on us. If the churches don't get involved, if the civic groups don't get involved, if school organizations don't get involved, and just ordinary citizens don't get involved. I'm not talking about the young people because they have been enlightened and they already know that he was sent. In my opinion, he was sent by God. He has a calling on his life to do what he's doing. And that's why he's so electrifying. And that's why there's so much electricity and so much excitement and so much exuberance about him and about his movement, the movement. Because he's not just somebody that crafted his own purpose and his own destiny. I believe that he was put here for a purpose. And that purpose is to bring fundamental major change to this nation.
All right, well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for talking.
And I want Bernie to know that he has some, I don't care what the media says, I want him to know that there are some African American women that are stomped down.
Wait a minute. Are you black?
Yes, I'm black. Look at me. There are a whole bunch of African American people that are stomped down, hope to die, crazy about him. And we don't want, there's a song that says, I think Donny Hathaway says, I don't want nobody else. We don't want anybody else but Bernie. That's who we want.
All right, well, thank you very much for talking. All right, bye-bye.